What's up guys, my name is Vitaly and today I would like to do a thorough analysis of the housing market and determine its actual state of being. Many of us know the recent housing market dynamics have been changing. Demand has been cooling off, prices have been pulling back, and real estate companies laying off workers. This declining trend has been giving a lot of talking points to the housing market crash bros to paint the gloomiest picture of the housing market. The internet is obsessed with panic for a good reason. Panic is very contagious, it spreads fast, gets all the clicks, and most of the time, it pays well too. But like my friend from Housing Wire, Logan Motoshami, likes to say, economics done right, it is terribly boring. The housing market crash bros have pretty much pronounced the housing market dead, and we are about to see a significantly bigger housing crash than the one in 2008, therefore be prepared because there will be blood. It's easy to pick a few talking points seasoned with few buzzwords and sound pretty convincing, but the real question is what the data say, because numbers don't care about opinion. Speaking of 2008, instead of shouting that we're about to see another 2008 or worse, I think it's important to understand the difference between today's housing market and the housing market back then. We recently made a 2-minute video about the 2008 financial crisis. I encourage you to check it out to get a better idea of the events that took place back then. Many people who compare today's market to the housing market of 2008 to forecast another crash or worse look at the data selectively and pull numbers out of context. It is worth noting that the cause of the Great Recession was a bad credit issued to people that were not eligible for it through lax lending standards. To put things in perspective, let's take a look at the Mortgage Credit Availability Index. The MCAI measures the ease with which borrowers can obtain mortgage loans. A higher MCAI indicates that credit is more available, while a lower MCAI indicates that credit is less available. As the graph shows, the MCAI stood at about 400 in 2004. Mortgage credit became more available as the housing market heated up, and then the index passed 850 in 2006. When the real estate market crashed, so did the MCAI, as mortgage money became almost impossible to secure. Today, MCAI stands at 119, clearly showing that credit availability today is much tighter. Another significant difference between today's housing market and what led to the housing crash back in 2008 is the FICO credit score associated with the loan. In 2006, buyers with score under 620 received $376 billion in loans. In 2021, that number was only $80 billion, and it was only $20 billion in the first quarter of 2022. According to the latest household debt and credit report, the median credit score on all mortgage loans originated in the first quarter of 2022 was 776. I think it's fair to say that today's lending standards are much tighter. Each loan is tied to the borrower's employment verification, along with many other conditions that must align before the borrower can qualify in the first place. Overall, today's underwriting guidelines are much better at reducing risk for both the borrower and the lender. It's also safe to say that home borrowers today are in a lot better position. In the first quarter of this year, nearly 45% of the homeowners were considered equity rich, meaning that they had at least 50% equity in their home, thanks to the soaring prices in the last 2 years, of course. Distressed property sales, homes under foreclosure or short sale, represented less than 1% in the first quarter of 2022. In the aftermath of 2008, distressed properties reached 35% in 2012. Because of stricter lending standards, we are seeing such a low rate of distressed properties today. Also, the forbearance program that covered nearly 5 million loans helped borrowers preserve ownership during the pandemic. By the way, those who forecasted foreclosures would skyrocket once the forbearance programs expire and we will finally see the housing market crashing were utterly wrong. The number of homes under the forbearance program today is under 1%, 0.81 to be exact, from 5 million loans to 405,000. Looking at these few aspects, we quickly learned that today's housing market is entirely different than the one that led up to 2008. And it makes no sense to compare the two and say that a similar scenario will emerge this time. Today's home buyer is much more qualified than before the Great Recession, and we certainly don't have a credit bubble. Now, let's take a look at what's going on today and why this correction we are seeing in the market today is a good thing and should have been expected. As the saying goes, what goes up must come down. Home prices saw abnormal growth in the last 2 years, and there is no way it was sustainable. It's all fun and games until it's no longer affordable, and then reality sets in. From 2014 to 2018, home prices would appreciate 4% to 6% year over year. From 2021 to May of 2022, home prices rose by 20%, and there is no way this growth could have lasted for too long. A good question to ask is, well, what caused prices to skyrocket? You had all the components for a perfect storm these last 2 years. Not enough supply to meet the outrageous demand, record low interest rates, and people working from home. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Now, speaking of inventory, we didn't necessarily have low inventory as far as the number of units available for sale. We sold 6.9 million homes in 2021 versus 5.6 in 2020. The initial problem was high absorption rate, meaning properties would sell faster than usual, and I think that was purely driven by record low interest rates. In January January of 2022, month of supply is set at 1.6. To give you a little perspective, month of supply in January 2019 was at 4 months. You can see that properties were absorbed at a way faster pace in January 2022 versus 2019. The high absorption rates, driven by record low interest rates, created unhealthy competition among the home buyers, and higher interest rates couldn't come any faster to simmer down the insane demand. In August 2021, the 30-year fixed reached 2.8%. Today, it's 5.5%. With higher mortgage rates, we are finally starting to see demand cooling off, forcing prices to correct, even though we still have ways to go to see a well-balanced market. Today, months of unsold supply is set at 3 months. This is still considered an unhealthy level, and as interest rates remain elevated, we are hoping to reach 4 months of supply by 2023. Real estate and mortgage companies that had to overextend themselves and hire more than usual to facilitate the abnormal demand are now cutting workers as everything is cooling off. This also should have been expected. As the housing market takes baby steps towards normalizing itself, could we call it a crash? It certainly would be a premature statement to make, as the housing market is still well above normal levels. Will there be a housing market bloodbath this year or next year? Based on the data we are seeing and how homeowners are positioned today, it's highly unlikely. But hey, this is the internet, a coin machine for anyone with 2 cents, and this is just my take on everything I see in the housing market today. As always, thank you for watching, and please make sure to like and subscribe for more content like this.